In 1822, a man sold thousands of people land in a country he had invented from scratch. It had a flag. It had a currency. It had a 355-page guidebook. It did not have any land. This is the story of Gregor MacGregor, the Scotsman who founded a nation by skipping the part where the nation exists. And the genius of it, the truly horrible genius of it, is that he didn't tell one big lie. He filled out every single form. First, the man. Gregor MacGregor was Scottish, born respectable, and very keen everyone knew it. He bought an army commission, married money, and sailed to fight in South America's wars of independence. There, alongside Simon Bolivar, he earned a real rank and a real reputation. And, crucially, a taste for titles. Because here's the thing about MacGregor. He was a competent soldier who discovered he was an even better salesman. Real medals are hard. Printed medals are cheap. He'd spend the rest of his life learning exactly how cheap. In 1820, on the Mosquito Coast of what's now Honduras, MacGregor did something technically real. He met King George Frederick Augustus of the Mosquito people, shared a great deal of rum, and walked away with a signed grant to roughly 8 million acres of jungle. 8 million acres. On paper, an empire. In reality, dense, unfarmed, near uninhabitable rainforest. No roads, no port, no town, no reason for anyone to be there. A normal con artist sells something fake. MacGregor's masterstroke was that he started with something real, a worthless piece of swamp, and built a fake country on top of it. That distinction is going to keep mattering. Now, most men would have come home and said, I own a lot of jungle. Who wants in? MacGregor understood that nobody invests in jungle. People invest in countries. So he didn't describe land. He manufactured a state. And this is the part everyone gets wrong about this story. We say MacGregor lied. He didn't, really. Not the way a street hustler lies. He committed an act of bureaucracy. He produced the paperwork of a functioning nation, item by item, until the paperwork was so complete that the missing country became the least believable thing to doubt. Because think about it, you have never once in your life arrived somewhere and checked whether the country was actually there. Why would you? It's on the map. He printed the map. He named his country Poyais, pronounced Poyais, because a fake country should always sound slightly French and expensive. And he gave himself a title, not king, that invites questions, but cazique, a local word he translated, very generously, as prince. Cazique of Poyais. It sounded foreign, it sounded legitimate, and best of all, it sounded like something you'd be rude to fact check. He printed it on everything. And once your title is printed on official letterhead, a remarkable thing happens. People stop asking who gave it to you. People stop asking who gave it to you. Then came the symbols, because nations have symbols. He designed a flag, a green cross on a white field. Clean, dignified, the kind of flag you'd salute without thinking. He commissioned a coat of arms, complete with heraldic supporters. On one side, the noble Poyer people. On the other side, unicorns. Unicorns. And nobody laughed, because it was rendered properly in the correct stuffy heraldic style. And a well-drawn unicorn on a coat of arms reads as tradition, not fantasy. That's the entire trick of this story in one image. Do it sloppily, and it's a joke. Do it with a steady hand and the right font, and it's a country. Next, money. You cannot have a country without a currency. So MacGregor founded the Bank of Poyais and printed the Poyais dollar. And here's a detail I need you to sit with. He didn't scrawl these on the back of an envelope. He had them engraved by William Home Lizers, one of Scotland's top banknote engravers, the same craftsman who cut plates for real Scottish notes. Not the bank's in-house printer, but an independent Edinburgh master who took contracts from real banks all over the place. So a Poyais dollar looked exactly as professional as the genuine article, because a genuine expert had drawn it. The notes even carry his mark, Lizers, Edinburgh, right there on the face. Tens of thousands of them rolled off the press, each one signed by order of His Highness Gregor, Cazique of Poyais. He then did the only sensible thing a man with a suitcase of fake money can do. He found people with real money and offered them an exchange rate. And what did 355 pages describe? Paradise, with footnotes. The guidebook detailed a thriving capital called St. Joseph, wide paved boulevards, colonnaded mansions, a theater, an opera house, a domed cathedral, a parliament, and a royal palace, home to some 20,000 civilized souls. It described soil so rich you could farm 3 harvests a year and rivers with chunks of gold sitting in the shallows. It was, in short, a brochure for a place that did not contain a single building. The opera house had no walls, because it had no town, because it had no anything. But it had a page number. They reached the mouth of the Black River in late 1822 and began looking for St. Joseph. The boulevards, the cathedral, the opera house with no walls. What they found was jungle. A few rotting timbers from a settlement that had failed decades earlier, and otherwise nothing. No town, no port, no welcoming officials, no cazique. At first, they assumed they were simply in the wrong place, that the capital must be a little further up the coast. It wasn't anywhere up the coast. A second ship, the Kennersley Castle, arrived in early 1823 with nearly 200 more, bringing the total to around 250 settlers. Now stranded on a hostile coast with no shelter, the wrong supplies, and pockets full of money that was, by every measure, completely worthless. They could not even buy their way out, because the only currency they owned was the one MacGregor had printed. Then the rains came. Then the fever. What followed was not a swindle anymore. It was a slow catastrophe. Malaria and yellow fever moved through the camp. There were no doctors who could help, no medicine that worked, no town to retreat to. Some settlers simply gave up. There are accounts of men who, realizing the full scale of what had happened to them, lay down and refused to go on. A nearby British settlement at Belize eventually heard of them, sent help, and evacuated the survivors. But by then, the damage was done. Of the roughly 250 people who sailed for Poyais, at least 180 died. Fewer than 50 ever made it back to Britain. They had committed no crime. They had simply trusted a flag, a currency, and a very thorough book. The country was fictional. The graves were not. So here's the thing I keep coming back to. We tell this story as the tale of a big lie. It wasn't. A big lie is loud and obvious and easy to doubt. What MacGregor built was quiet and complete. A flag drawn to spec. Banknotes engraved by the same Edinburgh master who cut plates for real Scottish currency. A coat of arms with the unicorns in the correct heraldic position. A 355-page guidebook with footnotes. Embassies, commissions, land offices. A job for a cobbler. He didn't ask people to believe one outrageous thing. He handed them 100 small, ordinary documents and let the documents do the believing for them. Because we are trained from birth to trust paperwork, and to assume that if the form exists, the thing it describes must exist too. It usually does. He found the one gap in that assumption and drove an entire doomed expedition through it. The cheapest way to found a nation, it turns out, is to forge the bureaucracy and skip the nation. It had a flag, a currency, and a guidebook. It just never had any ground. If you want to see what it looks like when a con is built out of pure charm instead of paperwork, I've got another one waiting right over here. And tell me honestly in the comments, 355 pages, an official flag, a banknote in your hand. Would the paperwork have fooled you?